He could only watch, his hand stretched out toward his father, while waves of shock rippled through his body. But Ivor was intent on only one thing. He lifted his head off the floor and grasped his solicitor's hand in a vein-popping, eye-bulging frenzy. "It is what I want. Nothing else will do. Find it, Albert." Drake moved into his father's field of vision and knelt down beside him, reaching for his hand. Ivor jerked away, placing the hand on his rasping chest, then finally turned toward Drake. Ivor stared at him, really looked into his eyes as he'd never done before. Drake recoiled as his father's mask of indifference was stripped away by death's honesty, exposing the truth of feverish eyes and compressed lips, revealing a long-awaited, gleeful vengeance. The old Duke even cackled in his excitement, a grating, harsh sound that was cut off with a gasp for air. He'd started to speak, then gave up and died, that leering smile lingering around his now frozen lips. So sinister was the scene that both Drake and Albert backed away from the body as though it were black and stinking with the plague. They'd looked at one another for several shocked moments, then made for the safe. And now they knew. Each person in the room knew the depths of his father's hatred for him. By the end of the month, the whole of society would learn the shocking news that Drake Alexander Weston, the only child of the Duke of Northumberland, had, mysteriously, inexplicably, been cut from the will. Albert stood, his hands shaking as he restacked the papers. He looked up at Drake, strain deepening the creases around his mouth and eyes, his age-mottled hand lying flat on the restacked documents. "A nasty piece of business, if I ever saw one. It is not the will he had me draw up years ago, my lord." He choked on the title, throat working up and down under the loose skin of his neck, then coughed into a hastily pulled handkerchief. That he should now be calling Drake "Your Grace" instead of "my lord" was one of many mockeries yet in store for Drake. Drake waved him off. "Never mind, Albert. I suppose I will have to get used to it. I suppose I should be happy to have a title at all." He said the words in a clear tone, but had to turn away from their staring faces, his stomach rolling. He fought the nausea threatening his throat. Unsure of his way, he found himself walking to one of the many masterpieces displayed on a far wall. Van Dyck's lush Samson and Delilah hung suspended like a scene come to life against the swirling mother-of-pearl panels of the walls. He stared at the raw beauty of the scene. Here was a man with strength, the kind of strength to bring down kingdoms. But Samson had his weakness, and Drake? Now he knew his. Tears welled up behind his eyes. He'd only wanted to please his father, to know that he was proud of the man Drake had become. But it wasn't to be. Now all he could see was a painting that would never belong to him, a father's love that he would never have. Why? His mind struggled to grasp it. Why all the grooming and pretending? The years at Eton and then Cambridge, the best schools in England, the military career in His Majesty's Royal Navy, the constant displeasure at any show of emotion other than self-satisfaction for some material gain. All the torment he'd gone through that made him into the man he now was. He'd thought it was to make him into a duke. He'd thought it was to mould him into a man like his father. He'd thought wrong. Drake paced across the rich Savonnerie rug, woven for this very room and placed to complement the gleaming mosaic flooring. His father spent much of his life in this room, overseeing its most minute detail, all part of the grand scheme to reflect the power and honour of the seat of Northumberland. Drake's gaze swept the room, trying to grasp some hidden meaning. He remembered, as a boy, when he'd really seen it for the first time. The richness of colour and texture could be overwhelming to someone unused to such luxury. He'd seen the awe on their guests' faces many times, and he'd always taken a pride in the fact that someday it would be him greeting that awed visitor. It would be his room that brought